I still remember that night, cold wind slicing through the Washington air, rain drumming on my coat, and the faint echo of my boots on the wet pavement. I had just left the Pentagon after a 14-hour day of crisis meetings. My driver had taken the night off, so I decided to drive myself home. It was nearly midnight. The streets were mostly empty except for the flashing red and blue lights that suddenly appeared in my rear-view mirror. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I was going under the speed limit, seat belt on, car registered, everything clean. But the lights didn't fade. They grew brighter, louder. I pulled over. 2 police officers stepped out, both young, white, and visibly tense. The kind of tense that comes from fear mixed with ego. License and registration. One barked before even reaching my window. I lowered it halfway and said calmly, "Good evening, officer. May I ask why I'm being stopped?" "Hands where I can see them," he snapped. I paused, not because I was afraid, but because I knew exactly what was happening. The look in his eyes wasn't about safety. It was about power. I've seen that look before in war zones, not city streets. I kept my voice even. "Officer, I'm a U.S. Army general. My ID is in my wallet." I'm going to reach for it slowly. But before I could move, his partner yanked open my door. "Out of the vehicle. Now." The moment his hand grabbed my arm, the rain turned to fire inside me. I was soaked, humiliated, and yet I knew resisting would only make it worse. So I stepped out. Calmly. Deliberately. The cuffs clicked tight around my wrists before I could even speak again. They shoved me against my own car, my uniform cap falling into a puddle. "Do you know who you're arresting?" I asked quietly. The first officer smirked. "Someone who thinks she's above the law." I almost laughed. "Son, you have no idea who you're talking to." But I said nothing more. Because in moments like that, silence is louder than anger. They searched my car without consent, flashlights piercing every corner. Then one of them said, "Looks like she's got military tags." Probably fake. Fake. I had spent 28 years serving this country. 3 tours overseas. 2 medals for bravery. Countless nights comforting soldiers who'd seen too much. And yet, in their eyes, I was just another black woman in a nice car. They sat me on the curb, hands cuffed behind me, rain pooling around my boots. I watched traffic roll by, people slowing to stare, none stopping. It hurt. Not the cuffs. Not even the humiliation. What hurt was realizing that no matter how high you climb, some people still see you through a cage made of their own ignorance. When one officer finally decided to run my info, I quietly said, "You'll want to use the secure verification line for federal personnel." "I'm registered." He frowned. "You don't tell me how to do my job." I gave a small nod. "You're right. Go ahead." 5 minutes later, his radio crackled. I heard words like "repeat that" and "are you sure?" Then silence. He turned pale. The other officer returned from searching my trunk and asked, "What's wrong?" The first one whispered, She's a general. Their tone shifted instantly, fear replacing arrogance. "Ma'am, General Thompson, we're so sorry, ma'am." I didn't move. Didn't speak. They fumbled with the cuffs, apologizing over each click. But the damage was already done. "Please," one said, "we thought we just didn't know." I looked him dead in the eye. "That's exactly the problem. When I got back into my car, my hands still ached from the steel. I stared at the steering wheel for a long time. Every instinct told me to drive home, let it go, be the bigger person. But something in me refused. I picked up my phone and dialed a direct line one very few people on this planet have access to. Pentagon Command Desk, the voice answered. This is General Maya Thompson, ID Delta 47. I need to file an immediate incident report involving local law enforcement misconduct. The silence on the line was sharp. Yes, General. Recording initiated. I recited everything: badge numbers, time stamps, even the rain on the ground. By morning, a copy of that report was sitting on the desks of the Secretary of Defense, the Department of Justice, and the Chief of Police for the D.C. Metro. 3 days later, both officers were suspended. Internal Affairs confirmed multiple prior complaints of racial profiling ignored until now. They didn't lose their jobs because I was powerful. They lost them because they forgot who they were supposed to protect. Weeks passed. News outlets tried to get me to talk. I refused interviews. Because this story wasn't about me. It was about every man, woman, and child who has been judged before being understood. One afternoon, I received a letter, handwritten, trembling ink. It was from one of the officers. He wrote, "General Thompson, I grew up being told to fear people who didn't look like me. That night broke something in me, and maybe it needed to break. I'm sorry. I've joined a reform training program. I'm trying to be better." I folded the letter slowly, feeling something I hadn't expected: forgiveness. Because power isn't about revenge. It's about responsibility. Now, every time I put on my uniform, I think about that night. I think about how quickly fear turns to hatred, and how easily respect can dissolve under prejudice. But I also think about how change begins not with anger, but with awareness. You can't fix a system overnight. But you can shine a light on it, one act of courage, one truth at a time. That night could be ended with violence, headlines, or worse. Instead, it ended with accountability, and maybe, the first steps toward empathy. So if you ever find yourself holding power, a badge, a title, a platform, remember, it's not about control. It's about humanity, and humanity means seeing the person in front of you, not the color, not the uniform, not the stereotype, but the soul. Gentle pause, reflective tone. My name is General Maya Thompson. I serve my country with honor. But that night reminded me justice starts not in the courts, but in the heart.